Greetings, LPS staff. Welcome to today's segment of State of the District Address, where we will cover updates and happenings within the Office of Equity. I am Andrea Dixon-Seahorn, Chief Equity Officer, and your host for today. The Office of Equity is charged with moving forward with those strategic efforts that have been established by the DLT Equity Work Group from years 2017 through 2019. And in this visual, you will see the foundational work of our DLT Equity Work Group in defining diversity as valuing the cultural identities, experiences, and differences of staff, students, and families. Equity as promoting access to educational opportunities and learning experiences that foster successful outcomes for all students. And inclusion as building an organizational learning culture where diverse perspectives of all are recognized within our larger school community. And as the framework for those definitions, our aspiration statements speak to our desire to fulfill our mission of creating a more diverse and equitable and inclusive organizational culture. As discussed in our December segment of Coffee with the Community, the district's Equity Center Strategic Plan was implemented during the 2019-2020 school year and contains 5 domains: teaching, learning, professional learning, leadership, and community. Today's Office of Equity updates will focus on those components of the strategic plan that fall under our direction and guidance of this office and address 4 of the 5 domains as outlined in the Equity Center Strategic Plan. Strategic Plan number 4, Equitable Access and Opportunity, falls under the vision area of learning. This focus area has been implemented by way of equity action plans in every school building and department by each school leader or director. The exception would be human resources and operations, as those departments have developed one equity action plan for their whole department. The largest concentration of the equity action plans focused on professional learning of LPS staff members, with the second largest category, 19% of those plans, placing emphasis on school department culture building and working to create a sense of belonging. As you can see on this slide, with respect to the 35% of those equity action plans that address professional learning, the focus areas within that category were on cultivating teacher leadership capacity and becoming more aware of unconscious bias, as well as developing cultural competence in our staff to meet the needs of our diverse learners. Strategic Plan number 7, Equity Audits and Assessments. This area falls under the vision concept of leadership, and the focus area for this plan has been audits that are currently being conducted in areas of the core curriculum, district-wide library collections and resources, specifically in the area of realistic fiction, fine arts, music, literature, and arts resources, as well as a district-wide equity audit that is being facilitated by the beloved community in partnership with the Kauffman Foundation at the district leadership level. Strategic Plan number 8 is on culturally responsive practices. Culturally responsive teaching practices fall under the vision area of teaching, and the focus area for this plan has been the implementation of the district level NEE indicator 6.2, which is about teacher communications with students are sensitive to cultural, gender, intellectual, and physical differences, as well as a pre-service requirement, PD requirement for all certified staff on the topics of cultural competence, cultural relevance, cultural responsiveness, and unconscious bias, in addition to all LPS being required to complete a Safe Schools training module on cultural competence and racial bias. In addition, there were some focus areas on the district's DEI online resource hub for LPS staff that is available through Inside Liberty. And also, we've had some conversations at the building level around equity cohorts and conversations. Our next focus area is on strategic plan number 14, which is around cross-cultural communication. Cross-cultural communication is under the vision area of leadership. And the equity focus for this plan has been stakeholder virtual listening sessions with our culturally diverse teachers and leaders as a joint effort between the Office of Equity and the Human Resources Department, as well as DEI focus groups with students in grades 5, 7, and 11, as well as families as a follow-up to Panorama's DEI survey that was administered in fall of 2020. The DEI focus group planning team is in the process of analyzing all of that data that was collected from those focus group sessions that were held during the first 2 weeks in March. And now, strategic plan number 22, cultural competence and proficiency. This falls under the vision area of professional learning. And the focus area for this plan has been the research and development of an RFP for a DEI PD service provider for all LPS staff, both certified and classified, for the upcoming 2021-22 school year. This labor-intensive task is currently underway, and the RFP Planning Committee looks forward to announcing the district's DEI PD service provider or providers at the conclusion of this selection process, with an anticipated target date of end of fiscal year for 2020-2021. The DEI Book Talk series. As we close out our session for today, I would like to share with you those books that were featured during our DEI Book Talk series for our DLT, District Leadership Team members, as hosted by the Office of Equity. Each book was facilitated by a different presenter as follows: Unconscious Bias in Schools, Dr. April Adams; Tell Me Who You Are, Dr. Dwayne Smith; White Fragility, Mr. D. Rosecrans; and So You Want to Talk About Race, Dr. Precious Kurth. These book talks were held both in person as well as virtually and involved 62 DLT members, or 82% of our district leadership team. They voluntarily participated for their own personal and professional growth, and these conversations led to deeper reflections on our practices as equity leaders. I want to thank you for tuning into today's segment of the State of the District Address on behalf of the Office of Equity. And it is my pleasure to announce that the Office of Equity will launch a new website this week to capture our work around the Equity Center Strategic Plan, as well as to house archive, district, and community presentations that are developed and facilitated by this office. I want to thank you again for listening and tuning in. Hope that you're having a great day. And in the words of H. Richard Milner, start where you are, but don't stay there. Thanks again.